Despite what the solar calendar might tell us, Labor Day weekend is typically considered the end of summer. But for students and teachers across the country, summer probably ended weeks ago. Schools in the Tennessee Valley have been back in session for several weeks, and education continues to be a popular career choice. At the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, a series of innovative partnerships and content delivery systems combine to form one of the nation's best teacher preparation programs. Today we're talking about education and how UTC is helping improve what's happening in classrooms across the Tennessee Valley. So come back for Metro Campus, the UTC Report. Hello and welcome back to Metro Campus, the UTC Report. I'm Chuck Cantrell. Education is one of those topics in which we all have some experience. From playing school before we were even old enough to be students, to being inspired by a teacher to reach new academic heights, everyone knows what it means to be a student. At the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, faculty members in the College of Health, Education, and Professional Studies, which includes the Teacher Preparation Academy, are working to train a generation of teaching professionals to meet the growing and changing needs of today's students. Our guests today are Dr. Valerie Rutledge, Professor of Education and Head of the Teacher Preparation Academy, and Dr. Peggy Roblier, Professor of Education. Both of you, welcome to Metro Campus. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Valerie, tell me, what does it mean to teach a teacher today, and how is that different than, say, even when you went through school?
Oh, I think it's dramatically different. One of the things I think that's a primary difference is formerly teacher education programs taught you a lot of theory, and you had very little opportunity to get out into the field until you were toward the end of your program. And then we've all heard stories of many of people who got there and decided at that point when they finally got into the classroom that this was really not for them.
Yeah, which is not the time to find that out.
That's true, that's true. And so one of the things that we have for years now done is put those students out in many different settings very early in their programs, give them some extended field experience so they can either determine if the career is the right one or determine within that career if they've made the right choice, whether it's content area or grade level.
So what are some of the ways that you're doing that and getting those students out into the schools early?
Lots of different things. In all of our programs, regardless of the licensure it leads to, there are multiple field placements starting with the very earliest course. Their first course, which is 201, requires a field placement of specific kinds where they do some observation and learn a little bit more about the profession. But as they move forward, those field placements become more and more intensive and potentially could be our professional development school semester, which is an additional full-time semester-long experience that puts the students in the schools, and our professors go to those settings and teach their classes.
So talk a little bit more about the professional development schools. Where are they? What experiences did they gain?
We have had for 15 years now a professional development school program that the UC Foundation was gracious enough to help us pilot when we first came up with this idea. Since then it's expanded. It started with one school. We are now in 4 different schools. And I guess you could actually say 5 because Normal Park has 2 different settings, but we are at Normal Park Magnet School, both the elementary school and the upper school. We are at Brown Academy, at Battle Academy, and at CSAS, Chattanooga School for the Arts and Sciences. And so depending on the program, a student will be placed in PDS in a setting that matches the licensure program they're pursuing.
Do you find students now, you've told that story about finding out at the last minute. Do you find students now, early on now, who really do say, this isn't for me?
Oh yeah, and I think sometimes they either say this isn't for me or this isn't the grade level for me. So if I've had an experience and I find that early elementary is not where I want to be, but I really like middle school, or I thought I always wanted to work in high school, but I found that I like the younger children, they've got enough opportunity with that experience to make a change in their career plan so that they end up in a more suitable setting.
Yeah, I think there's a special place in heaven for middle school teachers. I think
they all think that.
That's great. Peggy, I know you work with primarily master's degree and doctoral students. What are some of the skills that you think teachers can come back and gain at the graduate, that advanced degree level?
Oh, there are a variety of skills, definitely more in the way of technology skills, because that's always changing and developing. So they can come back and find out more about how they can integrate new technologies into their teaching, enhanced methods that have just been developed, all kinds of things they can learn.
So tell me, I know that we now have an online program. Tell me about the online education program.
Well, we're very excited about it. We just graduated the first cohort of our online Masters of Elementary Education. And there were 14 that started, 12 finished in August,
That's pretty good, actually.
It is very good, and 2 more plan to finish this calendar year. So it went very well. We got a grant from the University Foundation to develop the curriculum and train the teachers, and or I should say train the professors, the instructors. And we developed the curriculum to be specific to online delivery. So it's not just a matter of putting your lectures online, it's developing curriculum that takes advantage of the online medium. And we got very good feedback from the students. The evaluations were excellent. We have now, I think we're in our 3rd cohort of online master students.
What are the challenges of teaching an online program?
There are a variety of challenges, which I hope we are meeting well. Probably the first challenge is getting faculty who are willing to adapt their methods. It is a challenging thing to teach online, to all of a sudden not be able to see the students face to face, but have to make that relationship and have to make that connection. And so training the faculty, giving them continuous feedback so that they know what they're doing well and they know what they need to improve on. As I said before, developing the curriculum that takes advantage of the online medium, that's always a challenge. And then continuously evaluating it and making it better.
I tell you what, it seems to me that you're almost having to teach, if you have 15 people in the class, 15 individuals as opposed to 1 class. And I know
Very
that's
true.
not exactly the case. I tell you, we're going to have to take a break here in a minute. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation on education at UTC. Stay with us. Hello and welcome back to Metro Campus, the UTC Report. I'm Chuck Cantrell. We're continuing our discussion on education and teacher training at UTC. Our guests are Valerie Rutledge and Peggy Roblier, faculty members at UTC. Both of you, thank you very much again for being here. We were talking about online courses, and I have a question about, there seems to be a lot of questions about the quality of the education. How do you know that the students who go through an online program are just as well trained and prepared as the students who go through a traditional program?
Well, that's one of the challenges, to make sure it's a high-quality experience. And I should note that there is something like 70 years of research that shows that it is an equivalent experience, or it can be. So the secret is to make it as highly interactive as possible, and to make sure that students are meeting criteria. That means you have to have criteria for the course set ahead of time. I would say that in some ways it's easier to make sure they've met criteria in an online environment because everything's right there and it's all in writing or it's all in video or whatever you're doing. In a face-to-face class, it may or may not be easy to see what they have done or what their discussions are like unless you tape them,
Right, right. So who are the ideal candidates for successful online students?
Oh, they have to be extremely well organized.
That's right.
They have to be self-regulated. Again, research is very clear on this. They have to be willing to, what is it they say, that 90% of success is just showing up? They have to show up in the course space regularly. So that means they have to have an organized approach to learning. They have to, no one is going to check up on them if they don't come, or if they just choose to go in and lurk rather than interact. So they have to be well organized, they have to be self-regulated, and they have to be willing to give up that face-to-face contact in order to connect in a different way.
So what do you think are the attractions to an online program?
I think one of them, and I think Peggy would be able to list a whole lot more as well, one of them is the accessibility, and I don't mean just the access, I mean the timing of it. So if I'm an adult who has an unpredictable job schedule, who has a lot of obligations, or who lives at quite a distance, and some of our students do, but I'm trying to get my courses done and make timely progress through my program, sometimes the availability of a course online, or even in a hybrid format where a large portion of it's online, means that I'm going to be able to make more significant progress than I would be if I always had to be in a classroom on campus. And like she said, if the content of the course and the quality of the course is equivalent to that face-to-face course, then all of a sudden I have made myself more available to my potential student body.
Yeah, and that's sort of the argument for all online. Valerie, talk to me about the ESL.
Oh, okay. We started about 14 years ago offering the ESL endorsement. We actually,
what is ESL? For
English as a Second Language.
Yeah.
We did it in response to the request by the Dalton City School System because they were seeing a tremendous influx of people who came from another language background. And so in response to that, we developed the program, and we were lucky enough to receive some very large federal grants that supported us through those first few years. And since then, it's become a very highly desirable course of study. It is available totally online. It's an add-on endorsement for us. So a person who adds those courses must already possess a teaching license. But for those who need it and are already teaching and have a full-time job and other obligations, it's been a perfect match. And they've been able to complete everything. And we have, over the last several years, have added about 325 people around the state to the ESL roles of those people who have pursued endorsements.
I have to tell you, I think that there's this perception that it's all Spanish.
No.
But when you look at the numbers, there's an amazing number of languages being spoken in the homes
That's right.
that our students are coming from. And let me ask you this. You don't necessarily, when you go through an ESL program, you don't learn another language.
Oh, no.
What exactly do you learn?
Well, you've got to remember you're teaching them English.
Right.
And so what you are doing is refining and improving your own skills and knowledge of your language so that you can teach someone else at a level that makes them competent and able to understand and then apply English, not just in informal settings, but also in academic settings and in professional settings. So you start actually kind of reinforcing your own knowledge of your own language, looking at the legal aspects of the English as a second language requirements, and then moving forward to look at how would you effectively teach these people who are coming to you regardless of their age, and they're going to be at varying levels as well.
Right.
So that you've got to be able to assess that and then use what you know to help them move forward.
And it seems to be a language that's going to be increasingly important to know a little bit about around
Oh,
here.
yes.
It's German.
That's exactly
Tell us
right.
what you guys have going on with the Volkswagen
Well,
people.
it's turned out to be a real positive relationship. For one thing, in our foreign language department at UTC, we now have a full-time German teacher who is, I think, going to be a great addition. He's real excited about joining together with all the things that are going on here in the area. Volkswagen, because they have a large portion of German, not all German, but a large portion of German-speaking employees and families, have identified the UTC Children's Center and Brown Academy as a curriculum that matches very closely what they would have if they were in Germany. And so that side, as well as Normal Park, are going to be the two places where those families will be sending their children for those elementary experiences, because those families at that particular level of employee will stay here 2 to 5 years usually and then return, and they want to make sure they retain as much as possible the quality of instruction and a knowledge of their own culture and language.
Everything is so excited. Whenever you say Volkswagen in Chattanooga, everybody gets so excited. So we'll have to take another break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation on education at UTC. Welcome back to Metro Campus, the UTC Report. I'm Chuck Cantrell. We're concluding our conversation today with Dr. Valerie Rutledge and Dr. Peggy Roblier of the UTC College of Education. Okay, let's talk about the career of education a little bit. We really want to talk about these national comparisons that you see between American students and foreign students all the time. And there constantly seems to be these discussions about what is it going to take to make American education better. And yet, in some ways, I know we're the best. We have, certainly in higher education, we're considered the best in the world. So where's that disconnect? How are we doing in terms of education, and what are the problems?
You know, I think if you think about it, and I think Peggy would be able to share a lot more too from some of the higher education thing, but one of the things that strikes me is I think we have to remember we educate everybody. that we also
Exactly
provide
right.
the kind of education that addresses children along the spectrum, from those who are extremely intelligent and capable and motivated to those who have other kinds of issues that they are dealing with, whether they are emotional or physical or academic. And I think the fact that we are willing as a country to take on that task says that we are always going to have a group of people who may not measure up to that national standard or that international standard, but our goal is to educate everyone. And so I think you have to take that into account when you look at our school system and what we are doing. Could we improve? Absolutely. Couldn't everybody improve? And yet, I think for the kind of goal that we have in education, we've made great strides in trying to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to acquire skills and knowledge that will prepare them to move forward.
So are the comparisons unfair?
Oh, I don't know if they're unfair.
Yeah, I think they are.
I don't know that I think they're totally unfair, and here's why. If you use the same standard and you're looking at the same group of children, but I think what we have to realize, and I think this is probably what Peggy is alluding to, some countries, for lack of a better word, track. And so when you get to a certain point in your education, your opportunities become more and more limited. We try not to do that. We try to give everybody the opportunity to be as successful as possible and to pursue whatever career path or whatever educational path. And I think that sometimes makes a difference when you look at who you're measuring and how you're measuring them.
So I want to hear both of you. How did you both enter this field? Why did you become a teacher?
Well, I guess it was role models. I saw teachers that I admired and respected, and I saw what a difference they made in my life. And one of the things that made it possible for me to do was I went to the University of Maryland. And if you agreed to teach for a couple of years, you got complete tuition remission. So I was able to afford an education at a high-quality university. And after I went into teaching, I realized that, I'd made the right decision.
And Valerie?
I guess mine was a little bit different. When I was in the 4th grade, I decided I was going to be a teacher, and so I never changed my mind. But I chose English because I thought, wouldn't it be great to be paid to read and write all day long, and I do. So it turned out for me to be the answer, to give me the opportunity to do what I really loved and do it in a social kind of setting where you get a chance to interact with students and to have the opportunity to have some kind of impact on them, both professionally and personally. And I just think all of those rewards are such a key part of why I chose it and why I stay in it.
Well, so let me ask you real quickly. You sort of hit upon an area that I wanted to touch on before we close. You mentioned English education. What are the areas of education now where students can get jobs? What are the more challenging, harder to get into fields?
High need, foreign language, obviously, math, certain sciences, particularly physics and chemistry, special education, and then some of the other areas that are related but are not so specific. In certain areas in the United States and in Tennessee, there are even needs that we wouldn't consider high need. English, history, early childhood.
Depending on the area.
Absolutely. So you can't predict, and it has to do with whether you're willing to move, whether you're willing to go to those places where those jobs are available.
Right. I know there was a time when it seemed like we were sort of discouraging elementary education, and so it sounds like maybe, like you say, it depends on where you're willing to locate, because there's probably a need for someone everywhere.
Somewhere, that's right.
I tell you what, that's all the time we have today for Metro Campus. Remember, you can always find more about anything we discuss on Metro Campus by visiting the UTC website at www.utc.edu. Thanks for watching. See you next month.